gains with the Latin vote, but he's been so brutal, so heavy-handed, so horrible, and now all his little Trumplings are being the same way. This is going to cost him more than it gains him.
Well, and it could be a sugar high, and we saw that, speaking of California, here in the 90s.
Yeah, sure.
We had something called Prop 187, which was which passed here in California with a lot of white folks voting for it, and then it got a lot of Latinos involved in politics, and they have not won a statewide election since. And completely changed California politics, and we're still in that a generation later. Let's talk about the Democratic side, though, because South Carolina is going to be the first state for the Democratic Party. Pete Buttigieg is heading there this weekend. Pete Buttigieg, Trump and Pete face the South Carolina test, was the headline in Politico. Pete Buttigieg famously in a poll recently got 0% with black voters. Zero, like not one person. That doesn't work to win South Carolina.
Nope.
How do you see the challenge for him, and why is that for Pete?
You know, it's hard to know. I mean, first of all, why are we talking about South Carolina in the first place? It's because the DNC has decided it wants to go in a different direction. We've had Iowa go first forever and ever. And by the way, that gave you Barack Obama, who had considered no shot until he destroyed the Iowa caucus and then just went on to the presidency from there. Pete Buttigieg won Iowa in 2020, but it took them 2 weeks to count the vote. And so by that point, they had moved on to Biden. So, in some ways, now he's got a much harder path in South Carolina. I don't know why he doesn't resonate with black voters. Some people say it's because he's gay. I don't think that's right. We've got a lot more acceptance in our community and love in our community for gay folks now than we have in the past. But he's not breaking through. I think the reason that we've put, I'm guessing now, but I think the DNC put South Carolina first, not to cause problems for Pete. I think they're trying to have a firewall against the socialist movement in our party. The DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. I think you got some people at the top of the DNC that say, hold on a second. If you look at the numbers, black voters are not excited about these socialist candidates. You dig into the numbers, it's a lot of disappointed college graduates, not actually working class black folks. So I think that they may be trying to stop the socialists right out the box, but it could hurt Pete Buttigieg.
And it could hurt in terms of South Carolina's relevance. Even though they're first, what they've done in the past was they got to be the decider. Now they're going to be the narrower, right? And it's hard to imagine that if AOC gets in the race, a Democratic socialist, that there isn't a lane for her, right? I mean, if there's 2 or 3 spots that come out of South Carolina, she probably gets one of them.
She gets one of them, and I'm forgetting what comes after South Carolina. Maybe even Nevada, right? So to Van's point, it's reaching back to these traditional, loyal Democratic groups and working class voters, which is why South Carolina and Nevada make so much sense.
And Nevada is very powerful with unions as well. The South Carolina play, though, we've already seen Gavin Newsom there a few times with James Clyburn, hugging him very closely. He couldn't be any closer. But this does this advantage, though, Kamala Harris? If she ends up getting into the race when black voters are so, I mean, how do you see both Newsom and Harris and their potential presidential ambitions?
Well, look, I mean, they're both formidable in this party. Kamala's challenge is that we tend to be a one and done party for our nominees. Trump's got 3 in a row. He might get 12 in a row if they let him. But in our party, we tend to be one and done. Everybody loved Al Gore. He got one shot, and after that, he moved on to climate. Everybody loves John Kerry. He got one shot. Everybody loves Hillary Clinton. She got one shot. So the idea that Kamala gets 2 shots is it would go. You got to go back to Adlai Stevenson in the 50s.
Before TV, really.
Exactly. So I think that makes it harder for her. But look, I think the black vote's a little surly. I don't know that it just automatically lines up for a Kamala, or lines up for a Warnock, or lines up for a Cory Booker. I think black folks are looking around, and don't forget, black voters picked Biden. So
and you know who else was running in that race? Kamala Harris.
Exactly.
And Cory Booker.
So look, black voters, I mean, you might see black voters go for an Ossoff. You might see out of Georgia, or you just can't tell where the black vote's going to go.
Well, we're excited that both of you are sticking around for the show. So we'll be back with more of you guys in our next hour, talk more about tariffs and talk about AI, a subject I'm sort of obsessed with these days. So thank you both for being here. In South Carolina, President Trump also briefly spoke about the war with Iran. Remember, that's still going on. He said that as soon as the war is over, oil prices will fall. The president also said he views the Strait of Hormuz as an American territory right now. Iran pushing back on President Trump's threat of a, quote, economic D-Day. The U.S. president had earlier threatened the most crushing economic operation against Iran in a social media post seen here. In response, the Iranian Foreign Ministry says new sanctions would pave the way for a return to full-scale classic colonialism. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met Oman's ambassador to the U.S. on Thursday following President Trump's threat to bomb the country over its negotiations with Iran. Joining us now is CNN national security analyst Alex Pleitsis. He's also director of the counterterrorism program at the Atlantic Council. Alex, welcome back to the story.
Thanks for having me.
Your sources say you expect this economic D-Day to come on Monday. What does that actually look like? What does that mean?
So we're expecting is the announcement of a package of what are called secondary sanctions. So primary sanctions against Iran itself have already been in place, but now secondary sanctions would be against other countries who engage in sort of economic trade with Iran that would extend them what the administration is calling an economic lifeline. Because the administration has moved on from military strikes at this point. I think they've realized Iran is able to absorb a lot of this and the regime hangs on. But can they really deal with the significant economic blow? And the only way to know is if they can completely choke it off from an economic perspective. And so there's an idea that this additional set of sanctions measures is really going to put the financial squeeze on Iran.
And you say that China is wrapped up in this as well. What does this mean for the U.S. and China relationship?
Well, China has stated in the past that they've rejected getting out of the U.S. secondary sanctions. They get a lot of oil and gas coming from Iran. And so it becomes a question whether or not they want to comply. And historically, this has been a problem. The Obama administration, to a certain extent, eventually decided to move forward with the JCPOA, which is the original Iran deal, as much as they thought they could get from it, because they really couldn't hold the international community accountable anymore, where they wouldn't sign on to these measures or sanctions anymore, particularly China in that case. So it's possible once again that we could see the Chinese push back against this, and that would push the U.S. and China further down the road, potentially a trade war going back and forth. It could cause China to withhold things like critical minerals. It's unclear at this point, but the administration intends to push forward because I think they want to see if they can force the Iranians back to the table to some sort of agreement back under that deal, that 14-point plan that was initially agreed to that needs to be worked out without having to resort to large-scale military operations again.
Obviously, the U.S. has tried to hurt Iran economically already through the blockade and other things that they have done through this. Is there any evidence that it's actually working, that the Iranian government is showing any signs of cracks? Or has the government just kind of been able to fight through this?
I think the way you characterize it is correct, and that becomes a question of what is the intention of these sanctions when they go into place, or economic measures that have been taken. In this case, the implementation of military force. What are we talking about? We've got a blockade of Iran right now, where it's not able to ship things in and out. Its primary income being oil and gas, and it's also suffering significantly from the blows that were struck as a result of military strikes, and then the sanctions that were in place before the war started. Collectively, that is actually having an impact on the Iranian economy. Inflation is and there are reports coming in and out, but that's not meant to just cause economic problems and have that hurt the Iranian people. It's meant to force policy change in the Iranian government. So far, they haven't really moved. We have seen them lash out a little bit more. They continue to strike ships over the last week or so in the Strait of Hormuz, and that seems to be sort of rationing up the pressure. As this pressure continues to build on Iran as a result of these economic measures, and if this continues over time, there are fears from some that I've spoken to that Iran could retaliate by striking oil and gas infrastructure in the region to push back on the U.S. rather than sort of capitulate. So far, the Iranian government hasn't shown any signs that it's going to give in. We did see two statements, though, that were publicly made. So we saw one from Zelikoff, the speaker, who's been the primary negotiator, and then also from President Pezeshkian, who Really was a reluctant president. He's focused on domestic affairs. He doesn't really touch international, and the security apparatus will make the final decision on international matters. But both of them basically said, hey, we can't let the Iranian people suffer food shortages. We're in a position sort of a winner. But do they speak the security apparatus? That's unclear at this point. And where's the payment portion? And so I think there was some input into the decision on what to do. But that really still resides with the IRGC and the security groups.
Yeah, it's kind of unclear who speaks for who, and kind of unclear who's run the country. We have not heard from the supreme leader actually out loud through this whole process. Alex Pizzas, thanks so much for staying great for us and giving us some great information. Ukrainian officials say a Russian government strike has killed at least 15 people, wounded at least 130 others. The video shows a drone hitting a shopping center in central Ukraine, erupting into flames. Smoke from an apparent earlier strike is already visible, rising in the ground in this video we're showing you now. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, says a second wave of drones targeted emergency crews half an hour after the first strike. So they got the crews out there to try to help people, and then they tried to kill them. He's now vowing to respond to that attack. Well, recently we've been told to stay away from lettuce and jalapenos to avoid getting violently ill. Now there's a new food to watch. What you need to know about this latest outbreak, that's next. Plus, Google is buying purchasing data from Spirit Airlines to feed its AI models. What that means for you when we come back.
Have I got news for you?
U.S. health officials are warning about a food poisoning outbreak linked to alfalfa sprouts in 15 states. The sprouts are produced by a Minnesota grower called Everything Sprouts and are also sold under the Calco brand restaurants and grocery stores. On Friday, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said it is aware of 55 cases, including 4 people who had been hospitalized. Outbreaks are usually defined by one type of germ, but this one has sickened people with salmonella and various strains of E. coli. The CDC says cases have been reported in Florida and states in the Northeast, Midwest, and Northwest. The tech giant and search engine Google is buying all the data of defunct Spirit Airlines to feed into its AI models. This includes internal information such as emails and spreadsheets, as well as data from public flight bookings. CNN's Michael Yoshida explains what's going on here.
Google is set to pay $10 million for decades of Spirit Airlines corporate and employee data, information it wants to help train AI systems. The court filing says the data has been stripped of anything allowing individuals to be identified.
We've finally seen very publicly the depths that companies are going to win and fight in this AI arms race.
Arjun Bhatnagar, CEO of privacy company Cloak, says the deal highlights a long-standing practice, companies and data brokers collecting and selling information.
Looking at companies like Google, what they're doing is they're saying, how can they look at your personal information when you're interacting with the company and training AI models, AI data sets, AI agents to see how they can operate in a way that's similar to the employee that existed.
And as AI gets smarter, the data is becoming more valuable.
AI has really also supercharged the ability for information that was collected at one time to now be able to be used for a lot of other purposes.
The Google and Spirit deal doesn't include customer information, but it does highlight how far companies are willing to go to get massive amounts of useful data. Bhatnagar says if that concerns you, there are simple ways to limit what companies collect. Use different emails for shopping, travel, and more sensitive accounts. Regularly check what data apps are collecting and sharing, and skip sharing your phone number or use a virtual one.
As an individual, it's time to start changing your information pattern, how you share it, and allow everything you do.
I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
Three U.S. states that get water from the Colorado River have faced big cuts as 2 key reservoirs have fallen to record low levels. The new 2-year operating plan funded by the Department of Interior would affect Arizona, California, and Nevada. The cuts would translate into about a 27% cut to Arizona, 10% cut to California, and a 16% reduction in water flowing to Nevada. This is according to the Kyle Center for Water Policy at Arizona State University. The Colorado River is a lifeline for the Southwest, providing water to around 40 million people and irrigating more than 5 million acres of farmland. One thing that could be a positive on that front, though, if we do have this super El Nino, it could mean a lot of water, which could cut into that drought. Lindsay Clancy's defense team rests its case as prosecutors call rebuttal witnesses ahead. The conflicting opinions about Clancy's mental state. We'll be joined by a longtime crime reporter who is covering every single second of this trial. She joins us with unique insights next.
We're going to do something that's never, ever been done.
Welcome back to Story. I'm Alex Michelson. Let's take a look at today's top stories. 50% U.S. tariffs on some $20 billion worth of Canadian goods now in effect after a Saturday morning deadline passes and Canada suspends trade talks with the U.S. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said in a statement late Friday that Canada will match the U.S. tariffs, quote, dollar for dollar. Supreme Court is allowing construction of President Trump's controversial White House ballroom to continue, at least for now. The Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, blocking a lower court ruling that would have halted the work. Roberts' order does not address the legality of the ballroom project itself and gives the Supreme Court more time to consider the Trump administration's appeal. TikTok and its parent company have agreed to pay $400 million to settle a lawsuit over children's privacy. The Justice Department sued TikTok and ByteDance back in 2024. The DOJ allowed TikTok kids to create accounts and illegally collected their personal data. Friday's settlement is one of the largest ever in a children's privacy case. This case is getting so much attention around the world. Lindsay Clancy's defense team rested its case on Friday after calling 10 witnesses. Prosecutors accused Clancy of killing her 3 children. But her attorney says she should not be held criminally responsible because she was suffering from postpartum psychosis. CNN's Bryn Jenrus has more on the sharply different assessments of Clancy's mental state at the time of the killings.
So before the defense arrested, maybe their most important witness took the stand. Philip Resnick, a forensic psychiatrist. Now, he basically has made an entire career testifying in high-profile murder cases. We're talking about the Unabomber. We're talking about Casey Anthony, Andrea Yates. Of course, that name probably draws the most similarity to the Lindsay Clancy case. In fact, the defense submitted his resume 40 pages long to the jury, almost to say to them, listen, you need to listen to the testimony of this witness, because he essentially testified that Lindsay was going through a psychotic break during the time that she killed her children back in January 2023, and that is the crux of the defense's case. I want you to hear what he testified to jurors, what he said.
She was known as a delusion of influence. That is, not only did she hear her command, but she felt that her body was taken over by an external force where she was in a dream state and did not have control of her own body. It was almost like she was a puppet and someone else was pulling the strings.
And when it was the prosecution's turn to cross-examine Resnick, essentially they continued to try to poke holes into the defense's case, of course, but basically questioning why, if Lindsay was hearing voices or she was receiving these commands, how come there was no documents of that in any of her medical records? How come she didn't tell anybody that, any doctors, therapists, any of the medical professionals that she got help from? How come they never wrote that down? So that is a continuing theme that we have heard from the prosecution's case, and certainly that was something that they tried to bring out of this witness as well. Okay, here's where we stand on this trial. The prosecution ended Friday with a rebuttal witness. Defense was cross-examining by the time the day was over, but we're expecting the prosecution to call at least 2 more rebuttal witnesses witnesses before this entire trial wraps up. And then, of course, you have closing arguments, and then the jury should get the case. So we do expect all of that to happen at the start of next week, and the jury might have this case in their hands as early as Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday. Bryn Grass, CNN, New York.
Thanks to Bryn. Let's bring in Lisa Backus. She is a reporter with Hearst, Connecticut Media's CTinsider.com. We've been covering this trial gavel to gavel. Welcome to the stories for the first time.
Hi. Nice to be here.
So the big story of this day is these competing narratives about her state of mind and sort of this battle between two different psychiatrists with different perspectives. Let's listen to both.
In her mind, she believed that she would be doing her children a favor by having them go to heaven with her rather than remain on earth without her doing the mothering. Her mind was distorted like that.
But what she told her doctors, in December is that she had no homicidal ideation. She only reported suicidal ideation, correct?
Yes, and as noted, that's very common because people fear their children will be taken away.
So, what kind of impact did all that have? Obviously, that was one psychiatrist. What kind of impact did the psychiatrist have?
Well, I think initially, he was very powerful. According to the internet, people were talking about how what he said, what he had to say. He's a very credible witness, just simply because he has been involved in so many high-profile cases. So I think initially, for him, it looked like it went pretty well. But then, of course, you have the other side. Somebody had done his battle of the experts today. So, and that's true. So not only did the assistant district attorney start to poke holes, but then they put out a rebuttal witness as well, who sort of had a different take on the entire thing. So how this is going to play with the jury, I'm not sure. I do know they were taking notes, though.
I mean, broadly, do you have a sense of where the jury is or how this case is going right now for Lindsay Clancy?
It's so hard to say. I think the fact that 100 people, more than 100 people showed up in support at the courthouse the other day, I think that's a sign that, even internationally, there's a lot of support for her. You never know what a jury's going to do. That's number one. I think Kevin Reddington said today outside the courthouse when the proceedings were done that the jury's been very attentive and very focused, and they have managed to keep all 18 jurors, which is, I think, a good sign, and it's a sign that they are taking it very seriously. So beyond that, you never know. You never know what a jury's going to do. In fact, he had said, which I thought this was an interesting comment, somebody asked him the same question, basically, and he said, no, I'm afraid to look at them. And I can't blame him at this point. There's a lot of writing on that. So I think everybody's getting it.
And you saw all those people out there that were just showing video of, the social media traffic for this has just been extraordinary. And this is just sort of a yes or no question. In your entire career covering so many different cases over the years, have you ever seen a case or covered a case that has gotten this much attention?
Oh, no, absolutely. This is by far 10,000 times what I've covered. And I have covered some good cases, in Connecticut. And nationally, Alex Jones. And this surpasses anything I've covered.
Well, the whole world is watching, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the days ahead. An opportunity to check out your coverage every day. Lisa Backus, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. CTinsider.com. They can check it out.
Always be promoting. I love a shameless plug. All right, coming up, amid the din of the immigration debate in Europe, a fundamental truth is often overlooked. Migrant labor is essential to the continent's food production. takes a look at the reality of the African migrant workers feeding Europe.
But when you're outside, you may think that, Europe is Europe. No. That's not what you say, because you suffer before you can get a sense.
Decades in Sports, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
Kassar of Texas is calling on federal immigration authorities to release a 5-year-old boy detained with his father this week. A family spokesperson says that boy and his father were on their way to a soccer match and they were detained during a traffic stop in Austin on Sunday. Video posted on social media shows the boy apparently crying and holding the hand of his handcuffed father as they're escorted to an unmarked vehicle. The father and son are both undocumented. Department of Homeland Security says they will remain together in federal custody pending removal. Democratic Congressman Madeline Dean visited the immigration facility where they're reportedly being held, and she described the conditions there.
I believe he and his father have been taken to Dilley, Texas, where I have been, and I have seen the abuses there. The abuses of children, the abuses of parents, families, the abuses of healthcare, the ignoring. Literally, when we were there with Joaquin Castro, Sarah Jacobs, and others, when we were there several months ago, we saw a little child whose mouth was so badly infected, we were at Factory Park, so badly infected it was green to look at. It is a place of terrible abuse. Another little Leah. This is not what America stands for.
ICE has pushed back on that narrative, saying that they are not abusing anybody. Meanwhile, immigration is an increasingly divisive issue across Europe, even though many of the countries debating those policies rely heavily on migrant labor. CNN's Jemana Karachi traveled to southern Spain to meet some of the African migrants who helped to feed that continent.
Chaos and utter human despair at Spain's stores, scenes that fast became fuel for the far right and growing anti-immigration voices on both sides of the Atlantic. But behind these images lies a more complex reality, as we found on our journey to try to understand Europe's immigration debate that drives so many to risk everything to get here.
We're in the middle of a sea of plastic, so vast it's visible from space. Greenhouses everywhere you look. This is Almeria in southern Spain. It is often described as Europe's vegetable garden because of this concentration of greenhouses. It produces millions of tons of fresh fruit and vegetables every year, enough to feed 500 million people. In the shadow of one of Europe's agricultural heartlands exists a darker side, rarely seen. Slums like this one, that have been around for years, home to part of the massive African workforce helping feed this continent. In a scene of squalor in modern-day Europe, we find migrants from North and West Africa. In his previous life, Amoteng Foster was a math teacher in Ghana. 2 years ago, he left it all behind, saying he paid smugglers about $2,300 for a perilous journey through Libya and across the Mediterranean, eventually making it to Spain.
And I'm not going to recommend anybody to do so. Very dangerous.
He shows us around this rundown shack he shares with another worker.
So this kind place.
Amoteng's story is that of so many parents enduring these subhuman conditions, all for the future of his kids, he says, to save enough to put them through college.
A lot of people are saying we don't want any migrants, close the borders. I mean, how does it make you feel?
It becomes a little bit worrying. Everything that we are doing here is fun. And the workers that we are using, all of us are Indian. This is what people can do. The governor has told them that we are helping them, they are also helping us. It's a mutual benefit.
The Spanish economy relies on migrant workers so heavily that the government announced an amnesty in April, offering legal status to hundreds of thousands already in the country. Amoteng hopes being here legally would bring him rights and respect.
Look at outside the fence. If you think that it's rosary here, there's no rosary here. Look at the environment that we live in. But when you're outside, you may think that, oh, Europe is Europe. No. There's no rosary here because you will suffer before you can get a friend. Do you know how much they're giving us, how much they give us here?
to work in this farm for 1 hour, they give you 5 euros. In this hot environment like this, you kneel down like this, you work continuously, and they give you 5 euros.
We get a glimpse into that grueling reality our time described inside one of the countless greenhouses. These men spend hours delicately planting tomatoes. Their hard labor will soon fill the shelves of European supermarkets. In the sweltering summer heat, temperatures must remain constant in here.
We've been here for a few minutes, and this heat is intense. And I can't begin to imagine what it's like for these guys working in these conditions, in this heat. Apparently it hit 44 degrees or 111 Fahrenheit earlier today. And they have to do this for hours. The owner of this greenhouse told us he only hires documented workers and pays the legal minimum wage. Across Rio, we find so many who are undocumented, vulnerable to exploitation, some of it happening in plain sight. At roundabouts and street corners, they wait to be picked up for off-the-book jobs that pay well below the minimum wage. Off-camera, business owners told us they pay what they can afford to still make a profit. The arrival of foreign labor helped revive a region that was once in decline. All around here, you find thriving migrant communities that have left their mark on this place. And the far right has seized on that. In suburbs like La Cañada that overwhelmingly voted for the populist radical right party Vox in the last election, we find pensioners echoing the rhetoric of these parties. If they can work and have papers, great. The rest is an invasion, they tell us. They are people who don't want to integrate. It's a narrative that's been gaining traction across Europe. Fears of demographic change and migrants being blamed for the rise in the cost of living. Scattered graffiti hints at brewing tensions. This one reads, no Muslims, no NGOs. Perhaps a message for the groups on the front line of this crisis, the Mercedarian Sisters of Charity. The calls for help to this Catholic NGO helping migrants get back on their feet seem non-stop during our visit. Sister Francisca turned 80 this month, but there's no rest for this woman on a mission.
So we come saying we're hungry, we want a sandwich.
At the food distribution center, the hungry queue for donations from local supermarkets. Amal tells us she hasn't eaten today. Sometimes she doesn't have money to buy water and bread. She had to leave her 6 and 4-year-old children in Morocco, she tells us, and came here on a contract to pick strawberries. After a dispute with her employer, she found herself on the street begging for any work. It was poverty that brought me here, she says. If I had something back home, I wouldn't have come. Sister Francisca remembers a time when there were no migrants here, when the greenhouses came. The road to a better life has led so many to this miserable place. It is in this land of plastic and shattered dreams that Europe's paradox is laid bare. Today.Kasie, CNN, the Lydia style.
Back to the UK. New reports suggest what could have fueled their decision. Could we see Meghan back on the big screen?
Top of the World premieres September 7th on